somebody actually gets a foot in the door and gets an interview, how does one prepare for an investment banking interview?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, since M&A is a more glamorized and a more publicized part of investment banking, most people think that investment banking means mergers and acquisitions, which is not always the case. So you need to have, for right off the bat, you need to have a very clear understanding of the role that you are interviewing for. If it is a mergers and acquisitions role, it might just be for a specific sector. So in that case, you need to be well aware of what sector you're walking into, what are the current trends, which are the main companies, what is the recent activity that has been going on in this space. If it's a product role like an equity capital markets or a debt capital markets, you need to be aware of any recent transactions that have happened in India or abroad that were marquee deals for any particular reason. You need to be aware of recent trends that have happened. Say, for example, in debt capital markets, ESG bonds are taking the world by storm. Things like that only come once you are aware of what role you're applying for. And I think the easiest way to understand the role is to go ahead and connect with somebody who is already part of this team and who's already been working in that particular domain, so as to get to know what a day in the life of a person who is part of that team looks like. Then one thing I feel that is very obvious but still often gets ignored is that in all the rush of brushing up on your valuations and really high level concepts, one forgets to brush up the basics, and very often that's where you get stumped. So I would suggest that no matter how confident you are, I would highly recommend brushing up your finance basics and giving them at least as much, if not more importance, as the high level concepts that you focus on typically when you go for these interviews. And of course, as I mentioned before, you need to be well aware of the current market situation. So reading the newspaper religiously becomes imperative. Next, and very often this happens, is that you've submitted a particular CV and you don't really look at it till the interview is actually happening, and then the interviewer goes ahead and asks you a particular points to something that is on your CV, and for some reason you don't really have that story prepared. So I think I would recommend that one reviews their own CV thoroughly and get their story straight. If you're a fresher, definitely prepare a few of the standard behavioral questions, because you as somebody who does not have very pertinent work ex or internships or maybe even the so-called right degree, it is important to be seen as a culture fit, because that is something that is very critical to banks, especially investment banking teams, because you're going to be spending a lot of time and a lot of stressful situations with your team, with the broader investment banking division. So the bank needs to know that you are a right fit in terms of your personality and how you would probably gel as a team member. Last but not the least, I would say that no matter how well you prepare, like any other interview, there is going to be something or the other that you are not prepared for or you are unable to answer. So that is obviously not the end of the world, and this is more of a general advice that you need to just hold your nerve and stay confident, because at the end of the day, you as an investment banker need to be marketable. And even when you're presenting to clients, there would be situations where you might not be able to directly answer a question at that very moment when you are asked that question. So you need to not lose your cool. You need to ensure that you reassure the client that while you don't have the answer right away, you will find it and you will come back to them. And that is something that will really go a long way in an investment banking interview. In terms of resources that you can use to prepare for an interview, of course, depending on what is the level that you're starting at, if you're a complete newbie, you can start with Investopedia, which sort of helps you build your financial vocabulary. CFA, as we already discussed, is a good way to build your concepts across the board. If you have a particular role or a team that you're focusing on, maybe you can just pick up the relevant module from the CFA course and go through it. Then there are a plethora of resources online, both free and paid. Things like Breaking into Wall Street, Wall Sky to Investment Banking, Corporate Finance Institute. There are enough and more valuation courses and YouTube tutorials to help you sail through these exams in terms of learning the concepts.